What was great advice 20 years ago, but definitely isn't now? Story 1. You need to memorize this because you won't have the info accessible later. The most important skill isn't knowing the right answer, it's knowing how to find out the right answer. And that's gotten much easier. Story 2. I remember when my dad told me as a teenager to never be the one to pursue a guy because I'm a woman. Maybe that was to keep me safe in my youth, but I've since come to realize that most dudes who are worth being with are either shy or oblivious, and I have no choice but to make the first move. I was both shy and oblivious. One night, an acquaintance of mine asked me out. I had no clue she was interested in me, although it seemed obvious after the fact. Married her 2 weeks ago. Story 3. In high school, as part of one of my classes, they brought in a lady who worked HR for some recruiting firm for a few days to teach us how to do resumes and cover letters and such. And she told us even if a place has an option to apply online, always go in person and pick up an application. No one takes online applications seriously. I was actually told this by a seasoned, experienced older employee around 2011 or so, while working a temporary position and seeking to apply for a permanent one, which, by the way, included the possibility of a pension. I carefully filled out a thick application stack by hand and delivered it personally to HR. Turns out that due to some recently added rule, I was not eligible unless I went through the entire online application process, and no one had told me until it was too late. It was probably better for my mental health in the long run to leave that job rather than feeling like I had to stay for the benefits, but the whole experience really soured me on trusting anyone's advice on anything ever. Always verify from the relevant source. Story 4. 20 years ago, don't meet up with people you met on the internet and don't get into cars with strangers. Today, get into the car with a stranger that you've summoned to your house using the internet. The first time I met my Ingress team, like Pokemon Go but competitive capture the flag, I was in a graveyard farming gear and got a message in-app saying, "Get in the gray van," and without thinking, I hopped in this gray van that came up behind me. Story 5. To look after your phone battery, you should let it go all the way down to 0% and then charge it fully to 100%. This is a good one. My 23-year-old nephew thought that this was the way to go even now because his mom had told him. He was visibly surprised when I told him modern batteries were better served by not letting them drop below 15%. Story 6. Everyone needs a college degree. Trade school is absolutely the way to go for some people, myself included, and I did both. To be honest, the saying should be everybody needs critical thinking skills. Not everyone needs a college degree. Story 7. To this day, my mom believes the way to apply for any job is to walk in and hand your future boss your paper resume, whether or not they're actively hiring. She's not even 60 yet, but calls anyone who applies online a lazy piece of shit, and she doesn't believe I have an actual job because I work from home. She just hates computers. My dad used to think this. Then I applied for his job and showed him all the steps. All he had to do was show up on time and promise not to be a terrorist. Didn't even need a suit. The application I took was about 6 pages of writing, a long waiting list, multiple interviews, and a 6-month application ban if they do not say yes. My dad was constantly sending me jobs at his company that I was not qualified for. I finally applied for one that was actually in my field, and he was shocked to find out that his recommendation meant nothing and that they didn't even have the budget to hire someone after doing 2 interviews. Story 8. Generic dating advice. People always wonder how some people get to be so creepy, but they forget that they've been brought up by a generation who thought the best way to get a woman was aggressive flirting techniques, actual stalking, and being overly possessive. Story 9. Don't forget to print out your directions from MapQuest before you leave. Though it still makes sense, download maps before you set out. Story 10. Stay away from the guy walking down the street having a full conversation with nobody. Now it's just AirPods. Story 11. Buy that house. Sure, it seems weird that you qualified for such a high home loan, but I'm sure they wouldn't offer it to you if you couldn't afford it. Home prices only go up, there's no risk. That turned out to be very wrong. Story 12. If you want a job, just walk into the place. As someone who does a bit of hiring, I don't even want to do the first interview with the person, let alone just have you show up. Story 13. I was ready to answer this until I realized 20 years ago was 2002 and not 1992. If Smashing Pumpkins released 1979 today, it would be called 2006. Story 14. Get an ARM loan on your house. Values go up like 10 to 20% each year, and by the time the loan adjusts, flip that house for a sweet profit. I'm so glad I got a fixed rate mortgage. Yeah, a 5.5 interest rate kinda sucks compared to the sub 3% rate I could have gotten with an ARM at the time. But at least I know my payment will be the same forever. Well, at least until 2032 anyway. Story 15. Walk in, ask for a manager, and give them a firm handshake. That's how you get a job. These days, you can walk in, ask for the manager, and he'll direct you to apply online. Then you won't get any response. Or you'll get one 6 months later when HR turns over and the new guy gets around to denying everyone who applied. I'm in charge of recruitment and front-end HR at my agency. I try to respond to everyone that applies, even if it's just a template email I've created to make the process really quick. I try to be the person I wish I'd seen at companies when I was a job seeker. It's a cold and brutal world out there, and I know I'm a dying breed. Story 16. Spending the whole day on the internet would never make you successful in life, said my dad. You can't spend the whole day staring at your computer screen. Nobody's going to pay you to do that. Story 17. Work hard and you'll go places and live comfortably with a successful career that will cover everything you want in life, or at least let you live comfortably. Pensions no longer exist in almost every career. Single-earner households went from 65% of all households in the 1970s to under 20% by 2020. My dad made $25 an hour stocking shelves at Stop and Shop when he retired in 2011 because he was grandfathered past the pay cap of $12 an hour at the time in the state of Connecticut. My first job was retail at Target, where even the assistant floor managers were capped at $15 an hour, where I made $9. So work hard. Forget the extra money that would be in your pension that you should see in your paycheck now, and get capped on the value of your labor. Took 7 years after graduating college in 2011 for me to have a job that covered COL expenses. After that, I spent 60 plus hours a week for several months on end just to basically get dumped by one company for another. I went on about 5 vacations with my family for weeks before I turned 16. Haven't been on one ever since, even alone. Story 18. Online college courses are stupid and will never catch on. I said this, I was a fool. I had a college professor who at the time was working as an advisor say this to me once. If you take a majority of online classes, your future jobs might think you're lazy. You want to take those classes that are in person because then it looks like you actually care about the classes. The entire time I'm thinking, even if I send a transcript to my prospective job, they're not going to be able to see if I took the class online or not. And this was in 2018-2019. So, obviously he had to know that information was just not true. And what do you know? Not a single job has even asked for proof of me having a diploma, let alone my transcript. Story 19. You're searching for a soulmate on the internet. Lord, you must be insane. Met my wife on the internet about 12 years ago, and everyone thought I was making her up until we could afford to fly her out here. Then it was, she's probably scamming you. If she's a scam, best one I've ever got caught up in. We sincerely appreciate you taking the time to watch our YouTube video. If you find our content helpful and enjoyable, please click the subscribe button to stay updated on any new videos we share in the future. Thank you once again, and we hope to see you in our next upcoming videos.